everyone, once again, welcome to Mike's not indie corner. Okay, I'm cheating. I'm totally fucking cheating. Yeah, we're obviously looking at a big blockbuster game today. So on this episode of Mike's not indie corner, we are going to talk about Batman Arkham Knight.
And when the dawn comes, when Gotham lies in ruin and I turn my gaze to the world beyond, the legend of the Batman will be worth nothing at all.
Okay, so your big question I'm sure you're asking is why the hell am I reviewing a AAA blockbuster game, even though that is something that I make a point not to do, mostly because A, expenses, and B, everyone else does it. There's a few reasons why. The first is I've been playing it so much lately, I figure might as well review it. If you want to know why there hasn't been as many videos released lately, that's why. And two is is it B? Whatever. Is the fact that the Arkham series as a whole has come to mean a lot to me as a gamer over the years. I've been a fan of them since like the very first trailer of Arkham Asylum. I was sold, I was hooked, I played the game, loved it. I even liked, like, Arkham Origins. I even got into that game. I mean, a lot of people harp on that game because it's made by a different developer, but it's actually still pretty solid. It's a pretty good game. So I figure it's only seems appropriate now that I do game reviews that I should take a look at the finale, I think, to the Arkham series in the form of Batman Arkham Knight. So, how is the game? I think it's pretty good. I think it's really solid. I have a lot of fun with it. I mean, the gameplay is still fantastic. To really talk about the story, it's impossible to get a full impression when I talk about the story without going into spoilers, so I'm going to make two videos of this. This is the general one. It's got general thoughts, talk about gameplay, talk about all the other stuff, and still give you a score of what I think about how good the game is. And I'll make a separate video that talks to the nitty-gritty of the story, what's good about the story, what's bad about the story, and everything in between. So keep an eye out for that video too. So as far as the gameplay goes in this game, or just the game in general, there is a couple kind of make or break mechanics in the game. The big one is the one that's got everyone like divided, which is the Batmobile. There's kind of, I haven't seen too many of the pro Batmobile camp. I've seen a lot of the anti-Batmobile, and I'm kind of more on their side, but for me, just because I've never been a big fan of racing games, or really games with cars in general, I always kind of find them a distraction, and especially in games that aren't designed, like, primarily for driving, I usually find the driving controls rather clunky and unwielding. And that's kind of the case here. I mean, there's been, you can tell there's been a lot of effort to make the Batmobile, even though it still kind of skids all over the road, there is a attempt to make it easily accessible. And it works sometimes. But it takes a while to get used to. I'm okay with it now. I'm playing for a long time. I can drive around with it, no problem. The big twist, though, is that your car can also turn into a fucking tank and blow shit up that way. I actually really liked, I will say this, I did like the tank combat. Like, I got into it, like I've said, like, but there's a trick. There's a trick you have to do, and you gotta do it early, otherwise it's gonna fucking ruin it for you. Now, the way the default controls are for the Batmobile is fucking confusing, because to get into the tank mode, initially, you have to, like, hold down the left trigger and then still use everything else to fire, which is really distracting. If you let go of the tank button for like a second, you go back to Batmobile mode. That's really irritating, really distracting, and pain in the ass to deal with. So all you gotta do is, right after you get to the GCPD for first time, you go into the settings mode, and you click toggle the Bat Tank mode. And that way all you gotta do is click the LB button and you turn on the tank mode for as long as you want. And then you press LB again and turn back on Batmobile. Makes your life so much easier. So much easier. So I recommend if you want to enjoy the tank combat, do that. Makes your life a whole lot easier. And also for some of the races, go into first-person view mode. That makes it a lot easier too. But yeah, it's one of those things, it takes a while to get used to. The one thing that really bothered me about the Batmobile wasn't so much that I was there, is that they shoehorned it into a lot of the combat, a lot of the puzzles, and basically made you use this thing for a good chunk of the game. And it got really irritating for me, because it was like, I don't want to use the fucking Batmobile. I want to be Batman. I don't want to punch things. I want to be sneaky. I want to do what Batman does. Instead, I gotta find shoehorned ways to get the fucking Batmobile into his room. It just felt like a giant distraction. It felt like a time filler. It felt like, okay, we have this in here, we have to make you use it. And it was just distracting. It took me out of the game. It's not game killing, but it got on my nerves a lot in my first playthrough. I mean, I think a lot of people kind of feel that way about it. It's not this company's shining moment as far as game mechanics go. But it's not the biggest deal in the world. There's still some fun combat to be had with the car, but really, it's filled with things it probably didn't need to be there either. I mean, once you upgrade all your flight abilities, you can get us around the city much faster by gliding, and so a lot of it felt like it was just the Batmobile trying to justify its existence in the game world. So, I don't know, it's one of those things, it is what it is. I don't think it's the worst thing in the world, and it's not enough to ruin the game experience for me, but it does just feel like a distraction. I mean, other than that, though, the game combat at this point is still pretty damn near perfect. I mean, there's no way in the way of, like, traditional boss battles in this game, which is probably for the best, to be honest, because that's always, apart from Origins, which actually did boss battles really, really well, like, boss battles have always been the weakest link in the Arkham series, so I guess the thought was, you know, if we can't do these right, might as well just take them out and replace them more with henchman combat, which I would ordinarily have an issue with, but the enemies actually have a good amount of variety that it does still feel challenging, and I didn't feel robbed that there was only a few even kind of sort of traditional boss battles in the game. Like, I didn't feel robbed that you didn't really get to have a final confrontation, because I feel like the game earned those other moments you had with the villains because of the challenges that you had to go through to get up to them. I felt like it was still earned. So, surprisingly didn't take anything away from that. One story element I do want to talk about, and I feel like it's not one many other critics that I've read anyway have fully talked about, is the fact that the main villain is the Scarecrow. I mean, a lot of people talk about the Arkham Knight, and I'm going to talk about him too, because there's a lot of shit to say about him. I'm going to say most of it for the spoiler video, though, because there's a lot to say about it. Let's talk about Scarecrow for a bit, because there was a lot of concern going into it, and that I shared a lot of it too, is the fact that in the comics, and in the games too, Scarecrow has always been kind of supporting character. He's not really a criminal mastermind, at least not in the many incarnations he's been in. Mostly because a lot of writers have issues trying to figure out what to do with him. He's kind of one of those one-trick pony kind of characters. And I really like the Scarecrow, don't get me wrong. Like, I was with everyone else where Scarecrow is my favorite part of Arkham Asylum. I even cosplayed him as a Comic-Con. I made a costume myself, which I was very proud of. I need to do it all over again, but I was very proud of it at the time. So, like, going into it, you find out Scarecrow is, like, the main villain of the game. You kind of have to, I had to be convinced that he can actually be a criminal mastermind. Like, is he a strong enough character to be a convincing antagonist, that he can lead these other villains, that he can have this giant master plan, that he can be rival Batman in every way. And I was surprised to find out that, yeah, they really pulled it off. And it's not the most complex character in the world, but at the same time, like, the fact that they made him even, like, a little intimidating, and they made you believe him as this genuine threat to Batman and Gotham City in general, beyond just his usual shtick, that's an impressive feat. You totally buy him as this mastermind. You totally buy him as someone who just wants Batman fucking dead. No, he wants him tortured, then dead. You buy what he's trying to do, and you buy that he's almost found fear as this less of an experiment that he did in Arkham Asylum, and more as this almost spiritual experience. I mean, there's some, like, if I had one issue with it, is like I did feel like they kind of vastly rewrote his character from Arkham Asylum. But looking back at the comic books too, they've done that with the character a lot, and that a lot of that comes back to is the fact that a lot of writers didn't know what to do with him, so they kept changing him to match whatever story they were telling at the time. It's kind of an unfortunate Scarecrow trope, but at the same time, I like what they did with him here. John Noble did a fantastic voice job, makes him really scary. The design for him is fucking fantastic. It's great, it's intimidating, and just looks fucking cool. This is a Scarecrow that actually feels legitimately intimidating. And I was very happy to see that, and I was very happy they managed to pull that off. And again, you do buy him as a genuine threat. Now, I will briefly, very briefly, talk about Arkham Knight, because a lot of what I have to say about him goes into spoiler territory. I will say this, like, who Arkham Knight turns out to be is really hard to spoil, because it's one of those things, if you know anything about Batman lore, and even if you don't, the way the story is structured makes it painfully obvious who the Arkham Knight is. And it's like, I knew it, like, I guessed it just based on the trailers I saw, and it turns out I was right. And like I said, I'll talk more about this in the spoiler video, but this is the case, like, this is so obvious. Why are you wasting my time with this mystery subplot? Just get the reveal over with so we can start dealing with the relationship between the characters. Like, this has become my pet peeve, these kind of mystery things, like, oh, who's the bad guy? Who's the bad guy? Who's the bad guy? It's the fact, like, it's so obvious who like, his real identity is. Stop wasting my time so you can start building him up as a character. The Big Hero 6 did this too, where it was like, it's fairly obvious who the main villain's identity was, but because you focused on keeping it a secret for so long, you robbed of a real, genuine character development you could have had on his part. Other than that, yeah, like, the game's fun. Like, the combat is still really fluid, still handles really well. I had a couple issues on the Xbox One version. I didn't play the PC version, in case you're wondering. But on the Xbox One version, the game froze on me a few times. I had to restart it. That was kind of irritating. Again, it's only happened once in a while. It wasn't that big of a deal. The story, aside from the whole Arkham Knight thing, which bugged the crap out of me, is still pretty solid. I would say Arkham City is still better in general, but I would say this is better than Arkham Asylum, because a lot of it does deal with, since it is Scarecrow, is Batman's relationship to his little Bat family, his relationship to his allies, and his greatest fears of who he is and who he could become, and like what lines he's willing to cross, what lines he's willing not to. I mean, Batman crossed some serious fucking lines in this game. To the point where it's like, dude, that's kind of fucked up. So yeah, I think that's really all there is to say about the game in general without going to spoilers, and there's a whole lot to talk about spoilers, and I do want to talk about it because there's some very cool stuff and not so cool stuff to talk about in that regard. So, give this game a score. Yeah, I would give us a 9 out of 10. Like I said, the Batmobile stuff does kind of bog it down. There's some story stuff that got on my nerves. None of it's not enough to ruin what is essentially a very fun game, very entertaining, and it's a good finale for the Arkham series, if they choose to end it there. I mean, keep in mind, I've done pretty much everything you can do in this game. I got 100%. I've seen the true ending. I'm just as confused about it as everyone else is. But there's also some hints to where the game's going, like what they may work on next. It'd be pretty cool if they did it. But we'll see what happens. Anyway, yeah, so Arkham Knight, 9 out of 10. So stay tuned for the spoiler version of this game review. And until then, thank you all for watching Mike's Not Indie Corner, and I'll see you all next time. Take care.